Imagine a room bathed in silence. Sunlight falls gently across the floor, stretching in patterns that shift as the day passes. The walls are familiar, the furniture unchanged, yet the stillness inside feels strangely heavy. It is not the kind of heaviness the body complains about, the ache in the knees, the stiffness in the spine, the slower steps that come with age. This weight is subtler, quieter, harder to name. It rests in the heart, in the unseen chambers of memory and expectation. We often speak of aging as though it were only about the body, as if the story of growing older could be told through lines on the face or the silver in our hair. But what if the real story is something else entirely? What if the true burden of aging is not measured in bones or muscles, but in what the mind still carries, the regrets we never voiced, the disappointments we tucked away, the comparisons we cannot stop making, and the roles we cling to long after they have outlived their purpose? The Buddha once reminded us that clinging is the root of suffering. And yet, how naturally we cling. We cling to the approval of others, to memories of younger days, to relationships that no longer nourish us, even to the belief that our best years are behind us. Like travelers refusing to set down their bags, we grow weary not from the journey itself but from the weight of what we refuse to release. Pause here for a moment. Think of the last time you felt heavy. Not in your body but in your spirit. Was it the echo of a mistake you replayed again and again? Was it the silence of someone who never gave you the acknowledgement you longed for? Or perhaps it was the reflection in the mirror, reminding you of a past you still measure yourself against? These invisible weights often press harder than time itself. And yet, Buddhist wisdom offers a gentle paradox. The path to freedom is not about adding more, it is about subtracting. Not about chasing youth, possessions, or perfection, but about loosening the grip. Letting go is not loss, it is return. Return to presence, to clarity, to lightness. History is filled with figures who discovered this truth late in life. Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison, emerged not broken but ripened, guiding his nation with patience instead of rage. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, well into her 80s, spoke of the quiet power that comes when ambition softens into steady service. And even someone like Steve Jobs, at the end of his life, reflected on the futility of clinging to wealth, realizing that simplicity of heart was more valuable than any empire he had built. Their stories echo a Buddhist lesson. Aging does not diminish us, it distills us. The question is not how much time has passed, but what burdens we are still carrying as the years pass. Look again at the room with sunlight spilling across the floor. The silence there is not the enemy. The heaviness comes from the clutter inside us, mental, emotional, spiritual, like Amira who filled her garden endlessly because she feared the emptiness. Or Rowan who covered his walls with clocks to drown out the silence. We too may find ourselves overgrown and overwhelmed. But the moment we loosen the grip, something extraordinary happens. Space opens, lightness enters, peace, which was always present, becomes visible again. So let us ask, honestly, what do we truly carry? Old letters that no longer speak? Regrets from decades ago? Comparisons with the younger self we will never be again? Toxic ties that drain instead of nourish? Or perhaps the most subtle weight of all, the belief that it is already too late to begin anew? Each of these burdens is like a stone in the pocket. Carried alone, it seems bearable, but together, they sink us. Buddhism reminds us that to drop even one stone is to feel the shift of freedom. And if we drop them all, the heart becomes lighter than air. Here, then, is the central invitation. Aging is not only the passage of time, it is the art of release. To grow older is not to fade but to ripen, not to weaken but to clarify, not to diminish but to finally arrive. The question is whether we dare to practice the letting go that allows us to taste this fullness. So I ask you now, not as a teacher but as a fellow traveler, if we dare to let go of regret, of expectation, of comparison, of the false stories we've told ourselves, what might we discover? Could it be that beneath the noise of memory and fear, there lies a quiet freedom? Could it be that the peace we seek has been waiting, patient and undisturbed, for us to simply unclench our hands? If we dared to let go, could we rediscover lightness and peace? 1. Letting go of clutter. When we speak of clutter, most people imagine messy rooms, overstuffed closets, or a desk buried in papers. But in the Buddhist view, clutter is not limited to the physical world, It extends to the mind, the heart, and even to the subtle residues of memory. Physical disarray often mirrors inner disarray. A crowded room reflects a crowded mind, and the constant noise of possessions can drown out the quiet clarity we long for. The story of Amira captures this truth. She filled her garden with endless flowers, not out of joy, but from a fear of silence. Her yard became suffocating, not because beauty is wrong, but because excess without balance breeds restlessness. Rowan's obsession with clocks offers the same lesson. Surrounded by hundreds of ticking reminders of time slipping away, he could not rest. Only when he released them did he finally discover the stillness between the seconds, the silence where peace resides. We see this same principle in the lives of leaders and visionaries. Consider Steve Jobs, who toward the end of his life embraced minimalism, famously wearing the same black turtleneck each day. It was not about fashion, but about removing distractions so he could focus on what truly mattered: creativity and innovation. Or think of Barack Obama, who once remarked that he reduced trivial daily decisions, like choosing suits, to preserve mental clarity for weightier matters. In both cases, physical simplicity reflected a deeper inner order. Buddhism teaches that clinging to objects or memories creates subtle chains. We often believe that keeping every letter, every photograph, or every old possession safeguards our past. But in reality, the essence of love or memory is not stored in a drawer. It lives within us. Holding on to too much, whether material or emotional, only fills our inner landscape with noise, leaving no room for presence. The Dhammapada reminds us, the one who lives without attachment dwells in peace. Clearing one drawer, one shelf, or one lingering regret is not about losing, it is about returning. It is a practice of making space. When we release what no longer serves us, we discover the extraordinary freedom of lightness. A tidy room is soothing, yes, but more profoundly, a tidy mind allows compassion and clarity to arise naturally. In simple terms, an uncluttered drawer equals an uncluttered heart. 2. Letting go of the fear of time, aging. In Buddhist philosophy, aging is not seen as a tragedy but as a natural ripening. Wrinkles, gray hair, and a bent back are not losses, they are inscriptions of a life fully lived. The body changes, yes, but beneath those changes the spirit continues to grow in depth and resilience. To fear time is to fight against a current that was never meant to be stopped. The wise learn to flow with it, to see aging not as decline but as transformation. The story of Anand, the elder sage, illustrates this. His hands trembled and his back curved with years of labor. Yet his eyes remained clear as still water. When asked if he feared old age, he smiled. The body bends as the tree bends in the wind, but the roots remain. This perspective reminds us that physical frailty does not diminish the dignity of life, instead, it grounds us in wisdom. Clara, the violinist, offers another example. When her fingers could no longer perform the swift movements of her youth, she hummed the melody instead. The audience wept, not because they missed her playing, but because they heard the soul of her music unfiltered. She discovered that her gift was never confined to her hands, it was within her being. Aging stripped away technique, but what remained was authenticity. Samuel, after decades of racing toward success, realized in his 70s that time was never his enemy. I thought I was running out of time, he said, but time was teaching me to slow down, so I could finally arrive. His insight echoes Buddhist teaching: urgency fades, patience blossoms, and peace arises when we stop measuring life by deadlines. We see parallels in global leaders. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison, emerging in his 70s with not bitterness but a profound calm that reshaped a nation. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, serving on the U.S. Supreme Court into her 80s, embodied clarity and steadiness rather than decline. Their lives remind us that age does not erase influence, it refines it. The Dhammapada teaches, the one who is calm in body, calm in speech, and calm in mind, is truly at peace. Aging, approached with acceptance, grants this calm. It is not a slow disappearance but a becoming, like fruit ripening on the branch. To grow old is not to grow less, it is to grow whole. 3. Letting go of expectations. In Buddhist thought, much of our suffering comes not from what others do to us but from the invisible burdens we place on them, our expectations. We wait for gratitude from our children, recognition from our colleagues, or affection from our partners. And when these tokens don't arrive, disappointment settles like dust. Lena's story shows this vividly. She waited every evening for her son to return, believing her joy depended on him. Only when she realized her peace was already present in the meal she prepared did she taste true freedom. Similarly, Darius spent decades longing for his father's praise. Only later did he understand his father could not give what he himself had never received. Releasing that expectation transforms silence into acceptance. Leaders, too, illustrate this truth. Abraham Lincoln endured years of public criticism without demanding universal approval. His clarity came from purpose, not applause. Queen Elizabeth II devoted her life to duty, not because people constantly affirmed her, but because she understood that fulfillment comes from service, not from expectation. Buddhism teaches that joy arises when love is no longer transactional. To let others simply be, without demanding they complete us, is liberation. Love then returns to its purest form, unconditional, generous, and free. 4. Letting go of comparison with the past. One of the quietest forms of suffering is measuring the present against the image of our younger selves. When we stare into the mirror of youth, we see only what is gone, not what has ripened. Buddhism warns that comparison is a subtle chain. It keeps us tied to illusions of what was, while blinding us to what is. The parable of the two bowls of water captures this perfectly. Youth, like the shallow bowl, ripples easily when disturbed. Age, like the deeper bowl, holds disturbances with calm stability. Julian's story echoes this wisdom. After knee surgery ended his mountain climbing, he first avoided the trails entirely. But eventually, he discovered joy sitting at the base with a book, allowing his eyes to reach the summit even when his legs could not. His peace did not come from reclaiming youth but from honoring his present. History offers striking parallels. Winston Churchill, once a fiery wartime leader, found in his later years a slower rhythm through painting and writing. He no longer sought the vigor of youth but cultivated depth through reflection. Likewise, Nelson Mandela emerged from prison not as the restless activist of his youth but as a steady elder who guided South Africa with patience. The Buddhist teaching is clear. Do not measure today with yesterday's ruler. Each stage has its own beauty. To compare is to diminish. To accept is to find peace. 5. Letting go of toxic relationships. Buddhism teaches that compassion begins with clarity. And clarity sometimes means stepping back. Not every relationship is meant to be carried for life, even those tied by blood. Nalen's visits to his cousin, who never missed a chance to belittle him, drained his spirit until he finally realized that loyalty should not require self-destruction. Aisha, too, struggled for decades under the criticism of her sister. Only when she gave herself permission to set boundaries did she feel the air of freedom, proof that kindness to oneself is the foundation of true compassion. World leaders have faced similar truths. Abraham Lincoln, while known for his forgiving nature, often distanced himself from advisors whose bitterness clouded his judgment. Oprah Winfrey has spoken openly about cutting ties with those who consistently bring harm, affirming that love without respect is not love but bondage. Their examples echo a Buddhist truth. Holding on to resentment is like clutching fire. It only burns the one who refuses to release it. To let go of toxic bonds is not an act of cruelty but of wisdom. Compassion does not mean enduring harm. It means creating space for love to flourish authentically. By respecting our own dignity, we free the heart to welcome relationships that nourish rather than diminish. 6. Letting go of regret. Among the heaviest burdens of aging is regret, the quiet weight of choices we wish had been different. Buddhism teaches that clinging to these memories is like dragging chains that no longer bind us except by our own grasp. Saren's life illustrates this. She once pursued wealth and reputation at the expense of friendship and kindness. In her later years, she found release by serving in a hospice, transforming guilt into compassion. Elias carried another kind of sorrow. Having been estranged from his daughter for 20 years, instead of drowning in self-blame, he wrote a letter, not to ask for her forgiveness, but to offer it to himself. That single act lifted a stone from his heart and opened the door to peace. History provides similar lessons. Mikhail Gorbachev, often criticized for the collapse of the Soviet Union, later dedicated himself to global humanitarian work. proving that redemption lies in present action, not in rewriting the past. Bill Clinton, reflecting on political and personal mistakes, has often said that regret cannot define him. What matters is how one uses the present to serve. The Dharma reminds us, the river is not judged by its source but by where it flows. We cannot undo yesterday, but we can choose how to live today. Self-forgiveness is not indulgence, it is liberation. The first step to genuine freedom. Letting go of the lie, too late. One of the most persistent illusions in life is the belief that our time has passed. Buddhism reminds us that this whisper, "It's too late," is not wisdom but fear disguised as certainty. Helena, at 78, discovered poetry after decades of caring for others. What began with hesitant verses bloomed into a late life calling. Martin, retired at 65, thought his world had shrunk until he began studying a new language and found friendships across continents. Their lives affirm that possibility belongs not to youth but to anyone willing to take a step forward. Global figures show the same truth. Nelson Mandela became South Africa's president at 75, proving that age can be the dawn of transformation, not its twilight. Laura Ingalls Wilder published her first Little House book in her 60s, shaping American literature for generations. These examples dismantle the lie of "too late" and replace it with the Buddhist truth of impermanence. Every moment is a fresh beginning. The Dharma teaches that as long as breath remains, the canvas of life is unfinished. Each inhalation is an invitation to act, to learn, to love. To let go of the lie, "too late," is to reclaim the present as fertile ground. It is never the end, it is always the next step. Remember this truth. You are not defined by your age, but by the life that still flows through you. Every wrinkle, every silver strand, every slower step is not a sign of fading, it is a sign of ripening. The essence of who you are is not bound to the calendar. It is alive, present, and waiting to unfold in this very moment. So let today be more than just another day. Let it be the day you set one burden down. Release even one thing. Whether it's an old regret, an expectation that weighs on you, or a comparison that steals your peace. Even a small letting go creates space for lightness, clarity, and joy to enter. If these words resonate with you, I invite you to share in the comments. What is the one thing you are ready to let go of today? Your answer might not only guide your own path but inspire someone else who is quietly struggling. And if you wish to walk this journey of wisdom and compassion together, please subscribe to Dharma Veins. Each week we explore teachings and stories that help us live with greater peace and freedom. And now, let us pause for a moment of collective prayer. May the blessings of the Buddha reach every being in every corner of this world. May those facing the devastation of natural disasters find shelter and renewal. May those caught in the fires of war find safety, reconciliation, and peace. May the suffering of all beings be eased, and may compassion awaken in every heart. The Dharma reminds us, no storm, no war, no sorrow is eternal. The river of life continues to flow, and in that flow, healing is always possible. So I leave you with this question: if you could lay down just one burden today, what would it be, and how might your life feel lighter tomorrow?